guys for joining us today on In the Flow with Jessica Kai. Kay, I always want to say Kai. Sorry, I know Jessica.
That's okay.
My brain is, I'll just give you a heads up that my brain is today, which may be good. And Robin Wild. um, Today we are going to chat about the lunar nodes and also apparently my brain. So, that could be entertaining for all of us. Jessica, do you have any weird parts today that are coming up for you? Body part?
No, not really. I'm here off of a couple weeks of vacation, so my brain is very happy right now. It does have to go back to work tomorrow, so maybe after that it won't be, but I highly support self-care and taking time away from work because that's not the only reason we're here.
It's very, very true. Yeah, it's a good reminder for sure. Okay, so we're going to chat about the nodes today. So I'll just kind of drop in and share with y'all. I had no idea what really a lot of stuff in astrology was, especially in the nodes, because the nodes aren't actually planets, right? They're like calculation points of the moon. But they can actually show us some very interesting information in our own natal chart. And then also where the nodes are in the sky, or, the calculation of where the nodes are in the sky. It's a lot about karma. It's a lot about the past versus what we're moving into and like kind of finding the balance between the two. So if we look at where the nodes are for a period of time, they change like every year, year and a half. Um, we're just coming off of the nodes being in Aries and Libra. So the South node was in Libra and the North node was in Aries from about mid-July of 2023 until the beginning of January 2025. So during that time, we would have had a lot of learning and growth centered around relationships, right? Relationship to the self, relationship with others, how we kind of find that balance, the autonomy between the two, how we relate to other people. It's just, to me, when I think of the Aries Libra axis, it comes back very strongly to that. I like some of the other things that you were chatting about, Jessica. What were some of the other points that you had around?
Around Aries Libra. It's a lot about that personal independence and harmonious relationships. Like that's really what the balance was about. And Robin and I were talking about the eclipses. So we've talked about these themes if you want to go back and through and look, but the eclipses happen where the nodes are. So it is all about letting go of things that no longer work for us, relationships that no longer work for us, really moving towards a place of sovereignty. And that has to do with that inner marriage and that inner relationship. So it's kind of almost drawing ourselves in more to our own knowingness, to our own kind of spiritual navigation system where we're following that and we're listening a lot less to what's going on out there. And as we can pull that in and move forward in our own authenticity, then it shifts. So what we see out here, our relationships change because they can't stay the same. When we do work on ourselves, the relationships will either change or they will fall away and new ones will come. So there's a natural evolution in how we interact with the world as we really put that focus on. So that's where we have been, like Robin said, since the last time the nodes changed. And now we're moving into a different theme for humanity and for the collective.
Yeah. So before we switch over to the new energy, can we just chat a little bit about like I'm a person that I feel like it can be important to kind of look back like when we notice these themes and we don't always notice them when we're in the middle of them, right? It's just human nature that a lot of times we'll hear stuff after the fact and we're like, "Oh, well that makes sense. Like I was working through relationship things or I had all these themes come up." It might be helpful for you to take because there's still a few like in the nodes should change like around the 11th. Um, so taking a few days in this energy that we're still in of Aries and Libra, depending on when you catch this, right? If you catch it and it resonates, still take the opportunity, even if the date doesn't exactly line up, to kind of look back and see where you have grown and where you have healed and where you could have expanded over that time period with Aries and Libra. I know for me, it was really cool to see a lot of the work that I had been doing the past like 5 or 6 years around relationships. I really was showing up a lot different in all of my connections in my life. Like I was able to be more vulnerable. I was able to just, speak more about things that were important to me and to compromise a lot more. Like I used to kind of be kind of a bull, or like, like I need to have it my way to a certain extent. Right, with all things. It was interesting. It was either kind of that or like the people pleaser. So noticing like that balance that I had, that I was coming into, of like, oh, okay, like my needs are important, but also other people's needs are important. And like, how do I identify that and come to this compromise instead of defaulting to either one of those, right? Because Libra can be the like, oh, I'm just going to do everything to make everybody else happy. And then Aries can be like the tyrant. No, like it has to be my way. Like I need to have everything the way that I want it. So again, like we're always trying to come into balance. We're always trying to come into that coherence. Anything you want to share about for you, either your personal journey of Aries and Libra, or anything that that's resonating with you to share with people that are
Yeah,
listening?
definitely. Well, and it's interesting for me because I am an Aries. Like my sun sign is an Aries, but my moon sign is a Libra. So I was born, in this kind of energy. And for me, this last year and a half has really been about, being true to myself. Like I remember even like saying to my husband, like, I'm really going to be focusing more on nurturing myself and really shifting how I'm interacting. And I put that out there because I was like, there's going to be a major shift in what I value. So I noticed that I stopped saying yes to a lot of things. In general, I kind of pulled more into my home. In the midst of all of that time, my home kind of exploded and needed to be redone due to pipes and all kinds of stuff. So it's interesting the transformation that's happened around me, around my home, but also my personal life. Like some relationships with family members ended due to their own volition because I just was started staying really focused on myself. Like, I'm not okay being in situations where I feel uncomfortable. I'm not going to go in there and create a big ruckus. The Aries, like loud, like, I disagree. I was like, nope, it's not going to be a huge explosion. But, when I start feeling uncomfortable, I'm just going to remove myself from these different situations. And it's so interesting because that's not my nature. My nature is to be like, this is not okay, and being very confrontational about things. And and I realized like the purpose of that was because I valued the friendships, and through conflicts, when things didn't work, I was like, okay, let's lean into that and see what can come out of it. Not everyone values that. And so, even being direct and seeking resolution never resulted any good with these relationships. Like the people never wanted to be direct and honest with me. So it caused me a lot of, dissonance. I was like, oh, I just want to have these conversations. I want to shift through this. And that was my own wounding because it was like everybody gets to have their own path. So just because this is how I want to navigate these relationships doesn't mean that that's what the other person wants. So I decided to choose something different. And it's interesting too, in my gene keys, some of the gene keys I have associated with the I Ching is like when you come up against a wall, you retreat and you seek good counsel. And that was like so revolutionary for me because for some people, that's not the guidance. Some people are like, you need to plow onward. But for me, it was retreat and seek good counsel. So that's what I started doing. Instead of just kind of, like you said, going head on into things, I started to retreat. And then that good counsel was, with listening to myself and my being and like, does it feel good to be in this situation? No. Okay, I guess I'm not going to go. And then also all the different stuff that we do, you and I, on a daily basis to gather insight and wisdom and just kind of look into those shadow patterns. So for me, it's been retreating. It's been not pushing the limit. It's been withdrawing. And what that caused to happen in my reality was that other people were then, because I wasn't pushing the issue, pushing the energy kind of sat, and other people were forced to deal with what was going on energetically or what was going on in the communication. And that forced some other issues. So the issues I was having, in my extended family, all of a sudden disappeared. They kind of blew up. A lot of people made decisions. I didn't have to, and it just kind of resolved itself. And it was like, wow, that person I was having such a hard time with, and I was trying to say, see, look, all of a sudden they're not in the equation anymore because other people saw it and held them accountable. So for me, that was such a huge lesson because I was like, I always felt if I don't address this, nothing is going to happen. It's going to always be a problem. And that wasn't what happened. It wasn't meant for me. That wasn't my fight. So I really learned around what is my fight and what is not. And that Aries energy, everything is their fight. So I pulled back and found my own internal balance. And then it left the situation for other people to work around and really kind of resolve some of their own feelings. So long story to say. And hopefully I made some sense out of it. But for me, withdrawing and shifting how I participate in relationships, really taking care of myself and nurturing my needs and doing what was best for me in that moment. Like each thing was a moment to moment decision to attend, to not attend, to do this or not do this. So by kind of listening to my body intelligence, I made some really good decisions that have shifted my entire reality in the last year and a half. It wasn't easy though. Like I say it, I'm like, it was pretty miraculous, but it wasn't easy. It was
Yeah.
learning. It was hard.
Yeah, I think a lot of these things usually are that easy, but I love it's like what you were sharing, what it brings to mind is how important it is to understand your energy and how your energy kind of flows because right with since the north node was in Aries, you could have taken that very literally as like, oh, I'm supposed to like be very empowered and like, kind of be more assertive. But you looked at like, okay, well, what are my patterns? What is my energy? And what does that mean for me personally? That's why like having a reading or understanding it's like I can look at my chart and I can have an understanding of it, but somebody else looking at it is going to be able to offer me like a more objective viewpoint sometimes of like what I'm able to understand. So it's again, that's a balance. Like, so if you're kind of questioning like what does this energy mean for you over the next year and a half, feel free to like reach out to somebody or do some research, kind of be inquisitive about, what are the things that I'm learning in my life or like what are the things that I'm wanting to bring forward more in my life, and how can these energies that are shifting, like how can they support me in doing that? So do you feel like that's kind of a natural segue into Virgo and Pisces?
It is, yeah. And I just want to throw in one last thing. When all of this was happening, I wasn't thinking Aries and Libra is happening. So even if you weren't aware that Aries and Libra nodes were there, look back because that's where we gain the wisdom. When we're going through something, it's kind of a surrender thing, but you gain the wisdom when you take the time to look back and see how that played out in your life. Because for me, that nodal thing, in general, South Node is about releasing and letting go. North Node is about where we're moving to. And for me, since that was kind of my life lesson, the Aries Libra,
Mm,
birth placement, for me, it was about sitting in the center of that and finding that balance. So we are more than our sun sign. We are more than our moon sign and our ascendant. We are more than our nodes. Like we are this beautiful picture that we're living out. So just feeling into how that played out for you. And then, even listening to what we're going to say about the nodes where they're moving, reading up on some of the nodes, what is it that resonates? Like, I have like 10 pages here of stuff that I printed out, but there's specific things that is like, ooh, that resonates. Ooh, that resonates. Like, this is where I feel like I'm moving towards in the next year and a half. So, how does what you're feeling, your internal body intelligence, link in with what you're reading? And how does that help inform and provide wisdom for where we're moving? That's
yeah,
sense.
yeah, that is super helpful. Um, so as we move into North Node Pisces, South Node Virgo, you might notice that we're moving backwards. So the nodes go backwards through the astrological signs. So now we're starting at the end. Um, we're starting at the end with Pisces, right? We were at the beginning with Aries. Now we're at the end with Pisces, and then the opposite sign is Virgo. So they're both mutable signs. Um, Pisces is a water sign. Sorry, Allie agrees, and Virgo is an earth sign. Um, so if we just look at, just very high level information, like Virgo is that south node, so it could be energies that we're leaving behind, maybe old karmic patterns. And then the north node in Pisces would be like where we're kind of leaning into, which is very much around spirituality, um, that dreamlike energy, kind of going with the flow. So maybe, and again, you're gonna have to look at like what resonates with you, like that balance between, which this is making so much sense for me because my nodes natally are in Virgo and Pisces, but they're backwards. So my north is in Virgo, south is in Pisces, but very much that balance between flow and structure has definitely shown up in my life because I can get stuck in one or the other. Like, oh no, I just want to play, or oh no, oh no, I just want to have the structure. Um, what else does Virgo and Pisces, that axis, kind of call forward for you, Jessica?
Well, it's interesting too, because you mentioned Pisces is the ending. So it's endings. Like it's very much endings. So not just releasing the South Node energy of Virgo, which is that perfectionism energy, that kind of rigidity, but it's also endings with this opening. So for me, I view Pisces very open, like you said, ethereal, kind of non-form. Like it makes me feel very like black hole energy. Like it's just kind of indirect, it's amorphous. And then we've got this Virgo, very structured, very material, very direct. So it's like where this is an opening for us to find places where we can open more, where we can flow more, where we can surrender more. Because we're really starting to open up, I feel, to, the larger world. I do galactic astrology. So like we're not alone, everyone. So we're opening up to this idea. And people are seeing things in the sky, whether they're drones, whether they're UFOs, UAP, whatever you want to call it, the skies are opening up. So our consciousness is opening up to what's going on. And then that's where that Virgo, that detailed, we get to decide. We get to decide what that means for us. And so if anything else, it's asking us to take where our mind was before, those rigidities, open them a little bit and make new decisions about how we feel. So can we expand a little bit and create a new thought form about UAPs, UFOs, the world around us, the beings that we're encountering? And it can still be the same. Like some people don't believe in it at all. Some people completely believe in it at all. But for me, it's just like, we think about the spirituality, we think about the framework, and I have realized for myself, like I want to feel that edge. Like, where is that edge? Because there's not too much people can say to me that surprises me. And like for me, that's a little concerning. Like, I want to be shocked. Like I want somebody to say something that's so far out there that I have to stop and think about it. Because for me, I feel like I've lost my edge because I know that I haven't heard everything there is to hear. And my mind hasn't kind of curiously moved through all the possibilities that this universe could hold. So that's where I was like, oh, I want to open to that during this Pisces Virgo. Like my mind has, I'm listening to the same things, I'm viewing the same things, I'm hearing the same narratives. And it's like, wow, there's a way where even my extreme point of view has become complacent. And I want to expand and I want to continue to grow. And it may be a no or a yes, but I want to at least like have that posited to me so I can continue to be curious about the world around us. And then also within myself, like I'm finding, I've been doing work on myself for years and years and years, and I'm finding places. It's like, oh, we're peeling the onion layer, we're peeling the onion layer. But what's like where I'm coming up against is like concrete. It has been there the longest. It has been hidden the longest. So other things may have been easy to peel off, and this is like concrete. So the rigidity that I'm finding inside of myself, those places, those traumas, those secrets that are held inside my body don't want to let go. They're very encrusted. So it's perfect timing that we're in this area of, I want to let go of that. I want to be able to open it up. I want to truly understand myself more deeply, my mission on this world more deeply, and where I exist in this cosmos to a larger level. And I've realized that there is a little bit of a box around me. So I want to break
Mm.
out of that and allow all kinds of information to come through for me to experience.
Well, and I love that you've brought in like the mind because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, which is very much about the mind, and how we tend to think about things. And ironically, like, so Neptune, I'm trying to remember, so correct me. I think traditional ruler is Jupiter, and then modern is
Neptune.
Neptune. Is that correct?
Pisces.
Yeah. Sorry, did
Yeah.
I say it? My
Yeah.
brain is. Um, so it's interesting, right? That you go from like having such kind of a finite expression with Mercury in the mind of that human mind, and then we move into one of my mentors, I guess she would call it divine mind, which is where it's the expansion with Jupiter, it's Neptune, it's very it's not as concrete, like it's not as it is very much the dream state. It is being able to expand and kind of look at things differently. Maybe even things that we thought we fully understood, having somebody come in and even just changing one little thing about how we view things. I was thinking about this. A friend of mine was like I love the way he thinks about this. Like, when we're like say like you're annoyed with something. I'm like, I really hate it when people ask me like this question. It was during the holidays. And he's like, well, you should reframe it. So like then you become excited about that question. And I was like, oh, I love that. Like I hadn't really thought about doing that. I just get stuck in like, oh, I don't want people asking me that question, which, is ironic because I feel like a lot of times, right, we're living through that lens of like, oh, love and light, but we're still human beings. So it's like we get annoyed by shit in the world. So like bringing that higher spiritual perspective of, okay, well, how would the Jupiter energy or how would Neptune, that Piscean energy, kind of bring us into really because the person who's asking me that like probably just wants to connect and like that's their way of asking me this question that annoys the shit out of me. Like it's not their fault they're asking me a question that annoys me. um right, so Pisces is that very like collective energy. It's like we're all one, we're all kind of connected. So how can we switch how we've thought about things that kind of limit us with the mind and Virgo and that Mercury energy into being more expansive and feeling more connected? I feel like a lot of times it is like a simple shift that we don't necessarily always grasp on our own. Like sometimes we do need people to kind of, point out things to us. There was something else I was going to share about. I don't remember. Yeah. So if it's meant to come back, it will. Let's see. You got anything, Jess? Since my brain just decided to, and maybe that's the beauty of it, right? Maybe my brain is already getting prepared for Neptune, where it's like,
Well,
Pisces, Neptune.
I love that you brought that up. Because, I, in my mind, I think, okay, Pisces, Neptune, but it was at one point associated with Jupiter. And Jupiter is all about expansion and growth and new. So it's interesting, endings are connected to beginnings. And there's this expansion in this area of connection and compassion and the collective. So we can really, you know, the other thing too is if you have struggled with compassion in the past, or even, I'm a social worker, I work in mental health. So that idea of compassion fatigue, like feeling so overwhelmed by, all the suffering in the world, this is a good opportunity to see how can I expand my compassion, like because the energy is there to support us. So that's where it's like we're moving into this, so we can either be overwhelmed by it or we can ask that energy to help support us. So it's already going to be this opening, like we're going to have this opening to the collective energies, we're going to feel more tapped in, and that could be overwhelming. But if we set the intention, and Robin and I have talked a lot about that intentional stuff, like creating that intention to allow this energy to help me open to compassion, help me open to those connections. And then I'm going to apparently push the envelope today. I'm going to be provocative, but also pushing our awareness and our understanding of what else is out there in the positive. Like, who are those spiritual guides and those beings that have been supporting us all along? Like, how can we open to allowing even more guidance? Say, as I say that, a beautiful butterfly just came in, flew past my window and kept going. But how can we open even more? Because that's where this is. That's where this is that spirituality. How can we open more to being even more aware of how we are supported and cared for and let go of the rigidity That says that I'm here alone, I'm doing it all by myself and nobody else cares. So
Yeah.
it's like one of those things where you can play with it. Like, what am I opening to? What am I letting go of? How am I growing in my spirituality? How am I letting go of control? And what does that sentence look like in your life? Interestingly enough, I like to kind of pick intentions or words for the year. And I was talking to my best friend's mom. She was telling me like what her words were, like what are a few words. And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Mine are flow, clarity, peace, and joy." And so when we look at this Pisces Virgo, like flow, flow. So how can I espouse some of that in my life? And then interestingly enough, what's the downside of Neptune is that murkiness. So it's like I want clarity. I want more clarity. I want to get more clear about these spiritual things that seem illusory because I know they're not. So I want to be able to open more, open my third eye, open my awareness more to see the reality of what is existing here with me so that I can use it as an alliance, as an ally, so I can increase the connection to that and not feel so alone. I can feel more connected to my higher self.
Yeah.
Kind of how I'm using these energies, even once, like I said, even not knowing, I wasn't really tapped into, we're moving into Pisces until actually, interestingly enough, I had a reading with somebody who it's like, I want to schedule a reading with you the beginning of January. And oh, by the way, their nodes were Pisces Virgo. I'm like, well, get ready because in a week or so, you're going to be in your own energy. So I
Yeah.
will say just a quick caveat for those of you that do have Pisces Virgo and we're going into Pisces and Virgo, this is a huge time for you to have rapid exponential expansion and a lot of falling away. So it can either be really difficult or you can really open up to whatever wants to move through you and be able to stand in your power on the other side of this. So that's how, same thing with eclipses, like that's how we view this energy. It's going to be intense energy, but what are you doing with it? How are you using it to supercharge your expansion and your own evolution?
Yeah. I mean, I love, like, I'm not a huge, I typically do the same thing where I pick words for the year. Like, I'm not a huge, like when we set New Year's resolutions, but I think the timing is spot on, right? Like using that intentionality of like, okay, what do I kind of want to embody this year and what do I want this energy to support me with? I love the other part that you were talking about with the intuition because it's going to be a great time for intuition development, opening your third eye, creating those connections. And then the beauty of that axis, right? The Pisces and the Virgo is that you have to ground that information down to the physical. So, right, we pull it in from that Pisces, like the very otherworldly, when we meditate, we connect with all these beautiful energies. And then how am I pulling that down into the physical plane? How am I, it's great to have all this information, but then like, how does that actually assist me in my day to day? How does that help me to fulfill my purpose or to have more joy or to have more peace? So that's another great way to kind of look at it. And the other thing that you can very strongly do in this, I mean, you can always do this, but because the energy is there, it can just be more profound, is to work with your dreams. So I've been doing this a lot lately. Like I typically work with my dreams, but I was introduced to something recently that's been really powerful for me, and I've kind of been doing it every night. So, and I like to credit people when I can, but I just don't know enough about this person to even credit them. So because it was like a friend of this person that told me. So we'll just in the ethers we'll give them credit. We have right. We typically think about our brain as being the conscious and the subconscious, but this person talks about our what do they call it? It's our subconscious, unconscious, and then conscious. So the unconscious is more like past life energy or ancestral energy, whereas the subconscious is that energy that, right, we were kind of conditioned with in childhood. It's our beliefs, our thoughts, all of these things. And then our conscious mind is like, right, I'm sitting here talking to you and I'm like consciously making this, well, kind of because I'm channeling, right? But like I could consciously make a decision to tell you about what I ate for lunch. So I've been, before I go to sleep at night, I ask for my angels, my guides, to come in and to heal anything in those three parts of my mind, and then also to align to align them and to make them work cohesively together, because that's been a huge thing that I've been working on, is like how my thought patterns are, how I think about things, my perception of things. Um, and then when I'm asking for that healing, I'm also asking to be connected with divine mind. So angels come in, help me to have more cohesion between those three parts of my mind, and then also then connect it to divine mind. So I'm not being pulled about by, you know, society or lower mind, which is right, like collective kind of matrixy energy. And it's been really helpful for me. Like I've noticed just waking up kind of feeling a shift in how I think about things, how I approach things. So whatever you use your dream state for, I'm not telling you have to do that, but you can use your dreams for healing, right? You can throw on a meditation before you go to sleep. You can ask for signs. You can ask for symbols before you go to sleep at night. Um, our brain shuts off during that time period, so we're actually able to connect more with the higher realms, right? Which is also what meditation can do for us. So meditation could be very helpful this year. Dreams. Anything else you have to share about that, Jessica? I know that you have also worked with your dreams.
I have, interestingly enough, one of the things that came up with dreams is, you have your dreams, you have your notebook, you have your pen and paper, you write down a couple of words. Somebody mentioned recording them. So like just literally grabbing your phone, hitting camera or whatever, and recording what you say. So the other night I was asleep. Dreams happened. I woke up. I didn't remember all of them, but there was like a couple of bits. So I was like, let me try this recording thing. So I hit record on my phone and then words came out. Like I don't even remember, but words came out. Like words came out of my mouth. Cause like in my mind, I thought, okay, I had a dream and one of my good friends was in the dream. She was sitting there reading a poem. And so I was, like that's what in my mind I was going to say. And then all of these other words came out, and then that was the last couple of words. So I was like, this is wild. Like this whole like recording. Because if I was going to write down, that's what I would have written down. I would have written down her name, writing a poem. So that's where I would say I also like am amazed because I know that there's a lot of activity that happens for me in my dreams. And I just, when I go to put it into words and write it down, just not much comes out. And now I've kind of found a personal hack of I'm just going to hit the record button and see what comes out of my mouth. So that's something I would say try it out. The other thing I've been doing, which is not directly related to dreams, but I get trancy throughout the day. Like, and I'll be walking around the house and I'll just be like, sit down for a minute and I'll be gone. Like, I will pass out for like 20 minutes. So it's not uncommon for me to kind of be moving through different states. And sometimes I'll just sit down. I've had some questions about different things in my connection to different places in the universe. And I've not really found a way to gather that. I've done a QHHT session before and I got some information that way. But I was like, you know what? There's got to be a way. So what I've been doing recently, and interestingly enough, Robin and I talked about this the other day, is I've been writing down my question and then I just write whatever comes through. And it is amazing the information that is coming through, which in my opinion, in my feeling, it's my higher self that's informing me of this information. And I wrote a whole couple of pages and I had to go back and read it. But I compare it to the quantum hypnosis healing technique, QHHT, which Dolores Cannon did. Because when I went under hypnosis, it was the same thing. Like I remembered the story that was coming through. It left an imprint on my being, like it opened and awakened some awareness inside of me. When I have been writing down those questions and drawing that information through, literally the same exact feeling, same exact sensation, same exact knowing in my being, where it's like, and that's where I keep bringing us back to that kind of bodily intelligence, that inner knowing. No one could say, Jessica, no, maybe that's not true. I know it. Like I feel it on a cellular level, this knowing. And so I feel like that's something else that we're opening up to, and that our dreams have the capacity to remind us of if we use that as a tool, whether it is dreaming and writing it down or speaking it out or kind of going into a trance state and writing stuff out. Like there are ways for us to connect our to our unconscious and our subconscious. And I love that you're setting that intention for all three to be connected because in the same token, we don't have to be asleep. And being in this Pisces Virgo axis, we are accessing that energy even more seamlessly now. So this is a great time to really start checking in with yourself, checking in with your intuition, checking in with your response and your knowingness. And I feel like we could really, when we learn the language that we speak and that we speak to our higher selves, we can not only, tap into our intuition more, but trust ourselves. Because we're constantly getting synchronicities, messages, they're our higher self, the universe is all trying to help us, and we don't trust that that is knowledge and wisdom coming to us. So this is really more about trusting, surrendering, going with the flow, and tapping into our own innate intelligence, those answers inside of ourselves. When we can believe that, truly, I mean, for me, energy testing, learning how to energy test helped me tap more into the intelligence of my being. And it started that whole journey for me to trust myself. So I don't know what you have done, Robin, to help you feel more in touch with your intuition or more trusting of yourself. But that would be an interesting thing if you had anything to share.
Honestly, it's something I still can kind of struggle with. If I am, so actually, ironically, we're so glad we're chatting about this because the shift that I have already started to notice, I feel like is because of the nodes changing, because they are my nodes. They're my nodes. Not anybody else's. They're all mine. Um, I so there's been a situation in my life that I very much was like doubting my intuition or like doubting myself. And it tends to be that way for me. Like it's just again, it's something I'm working on. Like I'm doing some deep healing around it. So I would actually wake up like I would wake up from sleep and like have a message from I don't even know, honestly, higher self, guides, whatever you want to call it, like very clearly you can trust the situation or this is in alignment for you, like just a very clear message that would come through. So if you're one of those people that you need, because for me it was like I could feel it in my body. It was not only that I was like hearing the message, I was also feeling it. Like for me, like being able to feel it physically is like important. Because sometimes if I hear it through my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. Like I could be picking up, right? Because I'm psychic, I could be picking up on somebody else's thought or somebody else's energy. But when I feel it like very viscerally in my own body, that for me is like, okay, I trust this more. Um, so if you're one of those people that you struggle with trusting your intuition, like, and you want to work on it over the next year and a half, um, ask your guides, like, hey, I want to develop this. I want to learn the ways that my body responds to these messages that you're giving me. Ask your guides to assist you with it. They will. Like Jessica said, like they want to help us. They're there. They're supporting us. It's like we just don't lean on them enough. We don't ask them enough for support. So sometimes I would ask before I went to sleep, like, hey, help me to have clarity around this or help me to have understanding around this. And I think it is also, you know, it's hard to hear your intuition or to come back to your sovereignty if you're constantly like on the phone or you're constantly working. It's like you have to create that space for quiet time. So for me, like again, you guys know, like getting out into nature, I find myself like wanting to meditate more. And whether that's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whether it's closing my eyes before, if I get somewhere early and if I'm sitting in the car and like I just close my eyes and breathe for 5 minutes, don't take those moments for granted. Like it's training your body and it's training your brain and your energy to go into those states more easily, right? When Jessica and I'm sure both of us, when we started meditating, like I don't know for sure, I wasn't there with Jessica, but I'm guessing like I think this is true for most of us that it's not super easy or something that comes naturally to us. Like we live in a very busy society, so be gentle with yourself. Like if you want to lean into this Pisces energy that we're getting, I would imagine the energy is going to be more supportive for those of us who want to meditate. But again, that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. So if you set a timer, I remember when I started meditating, I would set a timer for 5 minutes and I thought I was going to come out of my fucking skin. I was like, oh my God, like how long have I been here? Oh my God. Like, so another reason that working with dreams for me has been so helpful, or meditating and like napping, is because it shuts my brain off and I'm not like, the to-do list and all the bullshit. So sorry, I just went on a total ramble tangent. I'm going to trademark that ramble tangent. Oh, I like that. Yeah, ramble tangent. See, you might make up new words.
No, it's all wisdom because it's true, So what is that about? Interestingly enough, I was a meditation teacher for years, and the whole purpose of meditation is to tame the mind. It is to allow the mind to get exhausted and step out of the way. And that takes time. Like you were saying, Robin, like uh one of my teachers said, 2 minutes. Try 2 minutes and then expand it out. Because what we find on the other side of the mind having a complete meltdown and not being happy with being still is we find silence and peace. And we get to tap into that deep knowing of ourselves. So, we are dealing with so much right now. We're dealing with all of the noise from outside and it ramping up, and then the people near us, and then the news, and there's just so much going on. And then we have our own mind and it's doing its thing. So it's like, this is not easy. And, we mentioned one of the points is compassion. So allowing that compassion to grow for ourselves and for others. And I find more and more as I go down this path, like how mean I am to myself. And I would never be like directly mean. Like I don't say things to myself like, oh, you're stupid. I don't do things like that, but that doesn't mean that I'm not still being mean to myself, that I am not saying things or having the energy of things. And this came up in my conversation with Robin. Like I noticed that, sometimes I just get frustrated. And it's like the first thing that comes to my mind, and I'm like, wow, that's how I really feel. Like I'm disappointed in myself for doing this. Well, like that was one of the worst things that anybody could have ever said to me was I'm disappointed. So here I am internalizing that language to myself. And it was like, wow, all of this coming back to this idea of forgiveness and letting go. And ultimately, and I kind of said this, I've done a lot of work around forgiveness. I've worked with groups around forgiveness for like a decade. Loved it. Knowing all the while, like self-forgiveness is at the root of it. But until recently, I haven't truly understood what piece of myself I needed to forgive. And it's just so amazing when we keep going through. And once again, Rob and I had the same conversation. Like we're peeling off layers. We've been peeling off layers, and there's still more work to do. There's still more clearing away to do. And I'm realizing that even though I thought that those layers were hard, what's really hard is like we're going down to like traumas of when I was nonverbal and different things that are so deep seated and have functioned in my being for all, if not most, if not all of my life, that those are even harder because I thought that that was how it is. And then it's like, oh, so now we're at like foundational level shaking of breaking up these concretized things, this scaffolding and schema that have been functioning in my awareness, and I've been doing a lot of works on limiting beliefs. And actually, I'm going to pull this out because I love this lady's stuff. Let's see if I can find it. She has an ebook on limiting beliefs. It's like $19. Let me see. I want to find it real quick just because it's so good.
Yeah.
And
So
I've been
while
going, go ahead.
sorry. You've been what?
I've been going through it, and the way she has it set up is by chakras, and then she has different limiting beliefs. So I do energy testing. You can use a pendulum, and you just identify the limiting belief, and it's not like, oh, this one, like you read it. It's like, nope, okay, number 5, 4, and you read it, and you're like, whoa, and it just kind of like almost punches you in the gut because you're like, I totally wouldn't have chosen that, but that's so right on. You can then energetically remove that belief through whatever you want to use in your consciousness. And then it has another belief that you can put in. So it's like removing the negative, entering the positive. And that's really helped shift. And I think that this is really going to be helpful too during this Pisces Virgo is deleting those things that are no longer helpful and putting in things that are going to help us.
Yeah.
So I'll let you go ahead while I look for this real quick.
So just two things I wanted to, and I think feel like we need to give Virgo some love after we're done here because I feel like we've covered Pisces quite a bit, but we also want to chat a little bit more about Virgo, I think. So the other important thing with Pisces is and dreams, like working with, this very otherworldly energy, the collective energy, the high level energy is working with symbols. Um, I have, found myself like drawing little, I don't know if you can see my little, like my little doodle
Fun.
poem. Yeah. Um, which is funny because I'm typically kind of drawn to symbols, but lately I've really been drawn to them. Drawn to them. And then also meditating in groups can be a lot easier. So don't also feel like so discouraged if you're wanting to meditate or you're wanting to lean into that. Like find a meditation group, find something that resonates with you and lean into that because it is much, much, much easier to meditate. Like I can meditate for hours if I'm in a group versus when I'm by myself, I'm like, sometimes it could be a bit harder. So that's all I wanted to say. Did you find your
I found it, and actually, I'm going to go back to you about the sigils and most the paintings you see around the top of my room. Those are all like that have come through. So Pisces is about creativity. And
Mhm.
so in all of those, one, those are all sacred geometry, things that have come through that I have painted. And there's also little sigils all throughout it. And for me, tapping into, I love getting messages and getting affirmation. But I've also realized that any way that you pull that information, any way you pull those frequencies into your being and you kind of move them through you like a portal, like all of that is upgrading you. So don't just think, well, because I didn't get a physical message that said this, like being in that state is shifting your body, your DNA, your frequency. And when I would create these, like sometimes I would work on 3 or 4 paintings at the same time, like because it was like draw a circle over here, do this over there. And it was this amazing flow state. And just by spending time doing that, I actually saw that happening in my life. And I would actually create, some of them are intentional around, I had one when there was specific moon. So I created it during that moon cycle. And other ones are intentional around, I have one that has like hexagrams. So I just kind
Mhm.
of drew out different hexagrams and then I went back and looked them up and it was like love, peace, and joy. So it's interesting how we can bring messages through ourselves through these symbols and signs. And it allows our thinking mind that wants to control to get out of the way and for spirit to give us messages. So, even looking at these, like they instill certain energetics to me. And that's
Mhm.
why I found them so empowering. So I really support the just random doodling and drawing and seeing what comes through and how you feel about it and what it elicits within you. So as
Yeah.
far as the beliefs, it's called 1000beliefs.com. 1000beliefs.com, and it's by Jenny Rosengren. And it's this great little e-booklet. If you go on her site, you can buy it. It comes as a PDF. I don't know that you can order it. I think you have to get it as a PDF, but I love it and I use it all the time. Like if there's something specific like this situation, I need to remove some beliefs. Or
Mm.
you can just go through like one day what are the top 3? And then another day I was like, I want a belief for each chakra. I want to clear out what is the top priority for each chakra. So it's been really helpful for me because I've done so much work. So I try out new modalities here and there and just like what's another way to kind of chip away at this crust in here and just
Yeah.
open. And it's really, I feel the shift. Like I will actually do the removal of these things and then I'll sit down, take myself a little nap, and I wake up with more clarity. So just something that I found helpful.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love the integration time too with the nap because I feel like it's especially when you're working again with your subconscious or your mind or whatever part you want to call it. Having that time to like integrate the energy is really important that I think sometimes we forget about.
Well, and we don't always know. Like at this point, I feel like I've worked on most of the stuff that I have. and I'm running into blind spots and I don't always know, like I know that there's something not working here and I don't know, like I've used all of my tools and I still don't know how to get at it. I feel like this has helped me with that. Like, oh, there's super, rigid limiting beliefs. Once again, it goes into, oh, well, isn't that part of my natural programming? But when I can just pull it off a page, it's like, oh, bam. Like, okay, fair enough. I've dug it out of the unconscious and I brought it to consciousness. And that's what I feel like you mentioned, like Virgo, like let's give Virgo some love. That's what this access can do because we're there in that Pisces, that Neptune energy. We can pull things out of that dreamy time and bring it into practicality and bring it into reality where we can actually deal with it and we can work with it. We can use it instead of saying like it's a seesaw, we can use it as a portal to pull things through to shift the reality that we're in right now. That Virgo, is that Mercury, but it's also, got some of that earth to it.
Hmm. I feel like Virgo sometimes can get a bad rap, and I will speak for myself. I can give Virgo a bad rap. Like I've had a very interesting relationship with Virgo energy. Like my dad was a Virgo, and he was just very, he was also a Marine, so I feel like that kind of doubled the Virgo energy. And then when I found out, when I started studying astrology and learned that my North Node and also Saturn they're conjunct for me, in Virgo. I've had people tell me like when they've done readings for me that it can be like that drill sergeant kind of energy, which was very ironic. I was like, that's that voice that I hear of like you're not doing enough, it needs to be better. The perfectionism thing is definitely like the voice of my dad. Which I think Saturn can sometimes represent your father in your chart. So again, like having structure, having that perfectionism, whatever you want to call it, the desire to do well is not necessarily a bad thing, but maybe looking at like how that shows up in your life. Are you being too structured? Are you ignoring structure when you should be leaning into it in certain situations? I feel like boundaries are also probably right because Pisces is very boundaryless and Virgo is very much boundaried up. um, so we just came off of, I would also, I mean, I was certainly working on boundaries during Aries and Libra. Um, so that might be something you lean into in Pisces and Virgo as well. Let's see what else, Virgo.
Well, I would
Uh,
say there's some of the good things about Virgo is that, there is that structure. So for those of us that have had a hard time creating discipline and structure around some positive habits, like you were talking about that meditation, like how do we marry these energies together? Virgo is going to help support you to create structure around being able to spend more time meditating and connecting to spirit. And
yeah.
it's also going to, I just took a couple notes and they ran away. It's also going to help us, like you said also earlier, ground those energies in a way that we can gain wisdom from it. So we can get real out there, visiting all kinds of stuff, but unless we bring it into the body, into this physical reality, ground it into our day-to-day life, then none of that information that we got is going to help us shift anything. So
Yeah.
that's where I think using that Virgo energy to really help us, knowing, yes, it's rigid and it's perfectionist and it's structured. Like, I want to bring in, like, I would love to create structures around spending time it spiritually. And then also, you mentioned Mercury. So, communicating, it's also an opportunity for us to work on communicating and setting boundaries and changing boundaries. So, where are the places we need to set boundaries? Let go of boundaries and make boundaries a little bit more porous. And we get to look at all of that. So Virgo is like very important to have that kind of grounding, have that foundation, and to also, it's there showing up with its foundation. How can we chip away at that foundation and see where we need to fix what we're sitting on, what our structure is?
Yeah. So again, right, it's the balance between the two and having that discernment, having the awareness within yourself about, okay, is this an opportunity for me to lean into Virgo or Pisces, and in which areas of your life? Because we are multifaceted, just like Jessica said earlier. Like we are all 12 signs. We're all aspects of divinity and all aspects of, so many things that um, also, having that compassion and that gentleness with yourself as you move through any phase of your life. But right, especially when the energy is shifting. Jessica and I were chatting the other day, like, um, and I don't know if this is collective, or just what her and I tend to be going through. I would say it is a bit collective just based on conversations I've had with clients and also other friends. Like when we feel like we're in that in between, like we feel like something is wanting to be rebirthed, which again, like it's kind of the time of the year, like rebirth kind of starts to happen in spring. So we're in that more introspective, like purging, kind of going inward energy, and it can feel like we're like we haven't quite landed yet. Um, Being gentle with yourself, like creating the structure for that self care. Like for me, Sunday is kind of my, I don't really want to have much obligation or like anywhere that I have to be on Sunday. That's just kind of my like decompress, just have my mental health space. So having that structure for yourself on your calendar, maybe it's been challenging for you. Maybe it is something you can kind of lean into, or like scheduling self-care, scheduling meditation. Yeah, I think I am getting kind of like my downloads are getting to a stopping point. Anything else you want to share, Jessica, or anything else that's coming up?
Yeah, I this is, with astrology, the whole point is to just tap into what are some of the collective themes, like what's going on out there. You can even pull a transit chart and see how that's interacting with what you're doing. You can go real deep, you can not do anything at all. But the whole point of this is certain themes are being highlighted for us to use this energy to help. And whether we do it consciously or not, like I said, when I look back, I'm like, I was already doing that work. So for me, I love the idea of the planets, the nodes, how all of that is helping us on our personal evolution and the collective evolution. So I'm like, wow, isn't it great that everything is lined up now to help me go deeper in some of the areas I've already wanted to? And to see that not only is that happening for me, but the collective. So to see that around us also, not only with having more compassion for those around us that are also going through transitions. But even the thought came to me like, oh, this would be something great to use as a business plan. Like
Mm,
where over the next year and a half, people are going to they're going to be more predisposed to wanting to increase their intuition and to lean into that. They're going to be more predisposed to looking at structures or creating structures. So there's so much information that we can pull from this to support ourselves, our businesses, our clients, and to just, for me, it instills even a deeper level of hope at the collective awakening that we are all experiencing. So I know some people are like, oh, there's all kinds of stuff happening. But for me, every single day, literally, I just have this lighter feeling. It feels like there's more light, that there's more space, there's more openness. And I feel us moving into this beautiful collective future that all of us have been wanting, ever since I was born, even the people before me have been manifesting this reality of expansion and change and really being in the flow with spirituality. And I feel like that's more and more becoming grounded, Pisces, Virgo, becoming grounded in our day-to-day reality. And I love it. It absolutely makes me shine when I think about it.
no. Oh, I think that's a beautiful ending. I couldn't say anything to top that right now. I love it.
Oh,
All right. So thank you all for joining us today. Really, thank you for listening, supporting us. I was chatting with some friends the other day and they're like, you need to share more about your stuff. And I'm like, you're right, I do. So, you know, um, we appreciate you for supporting us. If y'all have any questions, comments, please, you know where to drop them. Any suggestions on future episodes or anything you'd like to hear or see, let us know. And we send you so many beautiful blessings into this year, peace, joy, whatever it is that you're calling forward. just envisioning that for you and holding that beautiful space as you call forward the highest and the best version of yourself. Woo woo! Thank you guys.
Thank you all.